Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
January 24, 2020, the biggest tax scam ever. And we will start with that story as European countries are beginning to look at some traders who pulled off what Le Monde called the biggest robbery of the century and what one academic called the biggest tax theft in history. From 2006 to 2011, hundreds of traders, bankers, lawyers, and investors made off with a staggering $60 billion siphoned from state coffers of European countries. The scheme was a monetary maneuver built around a monetary maneuver to avoid double taxation of investment profits. Through careful timing and coordination of a dozen different transactions, these trades created 2 refunds for dividend tax paid on one basket of stocks. So this process was repeated over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Germany was hit with $30 billion in losses, France $17 billion, as well as all other countries in the United Kingdom. This was came about really from the City of London with an assist from the Americans. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not these countries are going to be able to get their money back. The statute of limitations is run and where it all may be headed. Next up, in a really interesting series, a new participant in the Daily Compliance News, The Africa Report, has a 5-part series on Angola. Where did all the money go? So it's a very interesting series. The publication takes a look at the Dos Santos family and how they were able to loot the country of Angola after it was became resource rich. So lots of lessons learned and interesting information in this report. Next up, and just a great piece from Dylan Toker over at the Risk and Compliance Journal at the Wall Street Journal. If you don't read Dylan every day, you really should. When he posts, the stuff is just fabulous. He has an interview with former Telia Chief Compliance Officer Michaela Ahlberg, who, along with her colleague Anna Romberg, recently published the book, The Gray Zone, The Practical Guide to Corporate Conduct, Compliance, and Business Ethics. Anna is also a former Telia compliance officer, and they take a look at what they believe is why they were able to get the Department of Justice to give Telia, although Telia got a huge fine because they had C-suite involvement in their bribery scheme, they were able to get a much lower fine than Ericsson, and they were able to get a discount because of the remediation they engaged in. Plus, they were not required to retain a monitor. This interview about the book is really interesting. I've ordered the book, and we will certainly consider doing this for a Sunday book review going forward. So I hope you'll read the interview. She's got some very different views on the role of compliance and how compliance can really move to be successful. And finally, in a spat that probably could only exist in the world of academia, we have a scandal over meat papers by 2 prominent universities. One is Texas A&M University. Full disclosure, my father was a professor there for 35 years, now deceased. And Harvard University. And it came about because 2 professors who are now at A&M published an academic paper in a journal called the Annals of Internal Medicine. And in it claimed that there was really not a high risk of cancer from red meat. And then it was vehemently attacked, even with the part of 2,000 bots sent against the site. This came from professors associated with Harvard. So the president of A&M has called on the president of Harvard to investigate. Once again, only in academia. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks again for listening and joining us tomorrow.